The truth about excuses. Excuses are not lies, they're facts. And facts can be worked with, right? Sorena's disability meant he can't have certain jobs. He couldn't live totally on his own. Those are just facts, right? You can see where they might be considered excuses, but the way Sourena sees them, the way you need to see these things are, it's just a fact, right? But facts are not final verdicts, right? Unless you treat them that way, which is not how you go about accomplishing your goals. But every excuse has a grain of truth in it, unless it's an outright lie. But most of the time, excuses are simply a statement of facts, right? Just because something is true doesn't mean you have to operate from that thinking. The off-ramp problem. Excuses are seductive because they're comfortable, right? They give us a reason to stop. And sometimes these excuses, people won't even blame you for. They'll actually pat you on the back and give you a hug and be like, yeah, it is what it is, right? So it can be seductive and it gives you an excuse to stop. But if you want to accomplish goals, obviously you can't just stop. So think about somebody who's had a handful of bad relationships and they just end up saying, love's just not for me. Well, that excuse is real, right? The pain is real, but the conclusion that nothing can change, that's where things start to fall apart, right? The fact is you've had bad relationships. The judgment you're using and now the excuse is I'll never find love, that's on you, right? So traditional excuse mindset turns facts into a ceiling. It stops us from making progress towards our goals. The strategic mindset turns that fact into a starting line. Sorena's disability closed so many doors on him career-wise that he had to think outside the box. He took that fact and thought, but what can I do? One thing he could do, write and speak, right? Yes, he needed some assistance, but he's done it and he's been very successful at it. So his limitation actually ended up giving him some direction and he followed that direction. Not all limitations are stop signs. Some are arrows pointing you in the direction you wouldn't have chosen on your own.